Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our September webinar. I can't believe it's already September, my goodness. My name's Emma. I'm a Community Legal Education Officer here at Legal Aid Queensland, and I'll be facilitating the webinar today. First, I'd just like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the First Nations custodians of the land that we're all meeting on today. Here in Queensland, here in Brisbane, sorry, where we're broadcasting from, that's the Yagara and Turrbal people. I'd just like to pay respect to their elders, law, customs and creation spirits, and acknowledge that these have always been places of ceremony, teaching, research and learning. I'd also like to very much acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play in our communities and in improving our legal system. So today's webinar is Legal Aid Queensland's Child Protection Services, an overview, and we're joined today by Tamika Melville, a senior lawyer in our Child Protection team, and Rachel Wilson, family assessment consultant from our Child Protection team. I'll hand over to these lovely ladies in just a moment. I just wanted to go through a little bit of housekeeping. So just to let you know, the webinar is being recorded today and will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming days. If you have any trouble today, technology-wise, please click through the links to the GoToWebinar customer support team. They're your best point of access. If you do run into any dramas, though, that mean you can't watch the webinar, just reach out to us in the webinars inbox. We're happy to send you through a copy when it becomes available on YouTube. So we'll probably go for around 40 minutes of presentation today, and then we do have 20 minutes at the end for Q&A. If you wouldn't mind, well, we do say to hold questions for the end, but if you do have questions throughout, please do send them through. I'll be reading through those and we'll be happy to draw our presenters' attention to those in appropriate moments. If your question doesn't get answered today, please send it through to the webinars inbox, webinars@legalaid.qld.gov.au. We'll forward them through to our presenters and the appropriate teams so that they can be answered. We also have our handouts available. That's the copy of the slides. They'll be available at the in the handout section. They'll also come out in the email post-webinar. So we've just got a few polls to kick us off today, just to get an idea of who our audience is, where you are, and what your experiences are with the child protection system. So I'm just going to start our first one, which is, which region do you work in? So we're just wanting to know if you're from South East Queensland, Far North Queensland, Regional Queensland, or outside of Queensland. And just while we're collecting those poll results, I'll just let you know that. Sorry, somebody got their microphone on there? Or we can just hear you. Just for anybody coming to us from outside of Queensland today, I just wanted to note that the legislation we're talking about is Queensland legislation, not Commonwealth legislation, so it may not be the same in your jurisdiction. Okay, so I'll just close off that response now and share those with you. So largely everybody is from Queensland today, mostly from South East Queensland, but welcome everybody. The next poll we have is, what is your role? So I'll just open that one, sorry. So this one helps us to target our information a little bit better for the webinar. Are you a support worker, a financial counsellor, health or education worker, a social worker, or a lawyer, or somebody else? For the lawyers joining us today, I know that we have been in the middle of a three-part series of child protection webinars this month. I just wanted to let you know that this particular webinar is targeted towards our support workers, financial counsellors, health and education workers, and social workers. You may find that the legal information is not as in-depth as you might need. So if that's the case, please do reach out, but just an understanding that this information is designed for non-legal professionals. But you are always more than welcome, and we do welcome all the lawyers. So sorry, I've got two screens here and I keep looking at the wrong one. I'm just going to close those results and share them. So we've got a lot of lawyers in today. Thank you for coming and welcome. But everyone else who is attending, thank you also for joining us. And the final webinar we have today is just to help us understand a little bit more about your experience with the child protection system. So could you let us please know which client groups you might have worked with in the past? So we've got option there for minors or people aged under 18, people who identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, Islander people with a physical or intellectual disability, people at risk of or experiencing homelessness, or people who have experienced the child protection system as a child themselves. Just give you a few more moments to finish that. It's a very mixed response that I'm seeing come through at the moment, so it's good that we'll be able to share information with quite a variety of experiences today, and I hope that we answer a lot of the questions that you might have about how legal aid can help. So I'm just going to close off those responses now and share those results with you for your interest. Thanks everyone for participating in our polls today. I'm just going to hand over now to our presenters. So thank you, Tamika and Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. So the things that we're covering today, as you can see, are on that slide there. So we're just looking at what the services are that the child protection team offer, who's eligible, and how they can contact us. So because there's a range of people that are coming to this webinar, we thought it would be useful just to start off with an overview on the child protection system and to go through the phases. So we can see on the screen there, so we've got the first phase. And the first phase is when a concerned person might ring child safety. It could be a family member, a professional, a teacher, a neighbour, and they could have concerns about the welfare of the child that they know. And what child safety will then do is work out what they're going to do with that information. So child safety can take 3 actions during this phase. They can screen the information as an intake inquiry when there's no specific information about any concerns. They can screen the matter as what we call a child concern report. And in a child concern report, they've got 2 options there. One is that they can just keep the information for information and advice only. The other one is that they can then refer the family to a community support agency. And the community support agency, when they contact the family, if the family don't consent to work with the community support agency, or if they work with them and then disengage, that community support agency is required to let child safety know what's happened. And then that information gets used if there's further concerns that arise. So then we've got phase 2. So that's when the information is recorded as a notification, and child safety will commence an investigation and an assessment. And this phase can actually involve child safety asking the parents to agree to an immediate safety plan.
Yes.
And that can involve the child and or the parent residing outside of the home for a time period. It could also involve child safety seeking the parents to consent for the child to be placed voluntarily outside of the home under an agreement, or child safety could remove the child and seek an order before the court. Then we get to the third phase, which is ongoing intervention. And in this category, we've got two branches. So if child safety assess that it is safe for the child to remain at home, then they can do their ongoing intervention voluntarily through an intervention with parental agreement.
That's right.
Or through seeking a court order where child safety supervise the child in the family's home. If child safety determine that it's not safe for the child to remain at home, that's when they will go to court and they can seek short-term or long-term orders, which can involve custody or guardianship. There's a lot of focus in the community, and rightly so, on the prevalence of domestic and family violence.
Yes.
And the impact that this has on the emotional and physical safety of the victim and of the child. So child safety in those situations use principles from Safe and Together model, which is where they look at perpetrators being held accountable for their actions, partnering with victims, and keeping the child safe and together with a family member, primarily with the victim or the non-offending parent. Yeah. So as we've seen, there's a number of phases there, and what's really important is that parents get legal advice early, wherever they are in those phases. Because as we have just gone through, some of those phases can have some significant consequences and decisions that need to be made with regards to the safety of a child in the home, or whether further intrusive intervention is needed.
And those decisions made at that very early stage can actually impact on the next steps that are taken throughout a matter as well, or decisions by child safety or other people involved with the family.
So what we thought we might just digress a little bit, because what often comes up in this topic is the whole concept of mandatory reporters. And so we're just looking at who are mandatory reporters, and we've got that information there. So we've got doctors, registered nurses, teachers, police officers, public guardian, early childhood education professionals. And what do they have to report? Well, they have to report if they have a reasonable suspicion that a child has suffered or is suffering harm, or an unacceptable risk of suffering harm. Physical or sexual abuse is this category, and that they may not have a parent willing and able to protect them from that harm.
So, Rachel, how do they make those reports?
So those ones have to be given in writing to child safety, and they can also do it by phone as well, but it must be in writing. And this is a requirement because it's in the legislation. And for those who are interested, it's section 13E of the Child Protection Act, and that tells us who and what. And then section 13G tells us how.
Yes.
So the other part of reporting is reporting sexual offending. And this is from the Criminal Code. And these changes were made in July 2021. And there's often a lot of confusion between the mandatory reporting and this particular one.
Why is that?
Because the mandatory reporting one is professionals.
Yes.
This one is everybody.
Yeah.
So as we know, child protection is everybody's business.
It is.
And it's the community's responsibility as well. So this particular legislation says that every adult, any adult, anyone who is an adult needs to report sexual offending of a child by an adult.
What age are we looking at for sexual offending of a child?
So the legislation says that it's any person under 16. However, if a person has a cognitive impairment, then it's a person under 18.
Yeah. So that's interesting to note, because that's the sexual offending component, but a child protection concern, the Child Protection Act states that a child is a person under the age of 18. So in this particular situation with reporting sexual offending, it's for a child under the age of 16.
Yeah.
Yes. What is it that needs to be reported?
So as we can see on the slides there, so anything related to sexual abuse, so I'm not going to go through what the actual offences are, but I think if people have a look, they'll notice that one of those actually says grooming.
Yes.
And grooming is where an adult puts themselves in a position of trust and they act towards a parent or a child or a carer of a child in a way that makes it very easy for them to perpetrate sexual offending against that child. So even grooming comes under this legislation.
May I ask a quick question here? I know you can't see me on the screen. In terms of that, with this mandatory reporting for anyone who, what if you suspect grooming? What if you don't know?
If you suspect grooming,
yeah,
then it should be reported by any adult. As Rachel said, that child protection is everyone's business, and we're talking about sexual offending of a child who's under the age of 16 years.
Yeah.
If you're not sure what to do about that, you can absolutely receive some advice, ask some questions.
Yeah.
I would say it's best to report it by asking the question, does this need to be reported?
Yeah.
And then the appropriate people can take those next steps into seeing how that matter then proceeds from that point.
So if you're not sure, ask.
Absolutely, yes.
And the best people to ask would be child safety.
Yes.
And that takes us back to the beginning, which anybody can ring them and discuss their concerns, and then they will screen what they need to do with that information.
Yeah.
So we've gone through a little bit then of reporting and what child safety intervention looks like and the various stages. Now we'll go into the specifics of the child protection services here at Legal Aid Queensland. And we're going to start off with the early legal service.
Yeah.
So Tamika, talk us through, what is the early legal service?
So the Child Protection Early Legal Service is a team of lawyers, dedicated specialist child protection lawyers within the child protection team in Brisbane, and they provide legal advice and assistance to parents who are involved or at risk of becoming involved with the child protection system. What the early legal service does is we partner with wraparound services. A wraparound service for ELS would be considered a service that provides more than one support. So, for example, housing, finance, education, mental health, domestic and family violence support, parenting supports, parenting programs, drug and alcohol supports. So if they're providing more than one of those supports, we would consider them a wraparound service. And they could then partner with our service. So partnering allows that service to make referrals directly to our early legal service or our ELS. We aim to provide that advice as early as possible. So the earlier the referral comes in, likely the more chances we have to work with a parent. We aim to provide a holistic service. So the aim is that the lawyers are to meet the legal needs of the client in a child protection space, and the support service to meet the social and emotional needs of the client. We usually like to meet the client with their support service so that those needs are being met together, and we can see what services that parents need to address any concerns that child safety might have. We are based in Brisbane, so the team is a Brisbane-based child protection early legal service. So we do service Southeast Queensland, generally about an hour from Brisbane, to allow the lawyers to travel and return to the office in one day. And it's not based on a grant of aid. So if you've heard about legal aid grants of aid, it's a different type of funding that we receive, and it's not based on a grant of aid. So we'll talk about grants of aid later, but the early legal service is not part of that.
So just to clarify, if a child protection order has already been sought, are they eligible for early legal service?
Well, if the application has already been made in court for a child protection order or an assessment order, the client might be eligible to apply for a grant of aid at that point in time. So they wouldn't be eligible, but we would still encourage referrals. We have the rule that there's no wrong door, so still encourage the referrals. If we can identify that they're not eligible, and we'll talk about eligibility in the next couple of slides, we can find where legal aid might be able to assist this person. So we have these other services that we'll talk about throughout our presentation today, about other services that we have if a parent's not eligible for the ELS. So how can ELS help? So our early legal service involves advocating for parents to receive the support and guidance they need to keep their children safe. So this could include legal advice initially, and that legal advice might be, well, it's going to be about child protection initially, but if we identify that the client would benefit from legal advice in relation to domestic or family violence or family law, our lawyers are able to provide that advice as well. We can also make referrals within legal aid to other teams. So we do have other teams that specialise in domestic and family violence and family law, and we can make referrals to those teams so that the client can receive the assistance that they need. What our lawyers also do is identify any gaps in supports. When there's child protection concerns, what the lawyers will be looking at is how can the clients address those concerns to meet those safety needs of the children. So when we look at what supports are available, sometimes there might be a gap in supports. And if there is a gap, we would look at making referrals to other support services that might be able to close that gap and assist the family. Our lawyers also provide advocacy. They negotiate with child safety, they attend meetings with child safety, and do all communication with child safety. We're also involved with case planning. So if there's going to be some ongoing involvement with child safety at those very early stages, we can assist with case planning. We can assist, negotiate, and with the drafting of any ongoing and safety and support planning. Any intervention with parental agreements, so any agreements that parents might have with child safety to continue working with them for maybe the next 6 months. It could be a little bit longer, it could be a bit less, but we will negotiate with those. We've got some case examples where we can explain how we've assisted in those circumstances. And we'll also identify if the client would be eligible for a grant of legal aid, and that might be in a different area than child protection, or it could be within child protection. And if it is in with the child protection space, then we would assist the client with that legal aid application and potentially move on to legal representation under a grant of aid.
So who can be an ELS client?
So to be eligible for ELS, it must be a parent, and that parent is involved or at risk of becoming involved with child safety. And the matter can't be currently before the court, because if it's before the court, then there are legal aid grants of aid available. So some examples that we see are when clients are pregnant and the concerns are in relation to the unborn baby. Or it could be where there's an investigation and the parents have been informed that there's an investigation and assessment occurring. Child safety might have offered an intervention with parental agreement or a care agreement. There could be some other sort of agreements or planning in place. Or it could simply be that the parents have been informed that a report has been made and child safety are concerned, but they're not aware of any steps yet. So it could be those very, very early stages. We will perform a conflict check to make sure that there are no conflicts with accepting the referral. If there is a conflict, we can provide a conflict advice letter to the client, to the parent, and that will allow them to receive some legal advice from a preferred supplier of legal aid. And lastly, the client must continue to be engaged with the wraparound service. So remember, the referral comes through from that wraparound service who we are partnered with, and the client must continue their engagement with the service so that we can provide that holistic service for the clients.
So there must be a parent. Could that parent be under 18?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have referrals that come through where the parent is under the age of 18. So they might be a young person who is also a parent, or they could be a young person in care who is a parent or about to become a parent. Yes.
We're actually going to go through some case examples.
Yes.
Aren't we? So the first case example we've got was an 18-year-old child. Well, I'm going to say child, but adult. However, this young person was in care, in out-of-home care. And so we can see that when the young people are in out-of-home care, we've got a trauma background history. We've got a whole heap of issues that often accompany young people being in out-of-home care. Criminal offending, the mental health concerns, domestic and family violence, lack of support networks. Lots of reasons why people could think that it may not be safe for that young person to be a parent.
Yes.
So how did the ELS team help this young parent?
Yeah, so with this client, we had about 3 months to work with the client before her baby was born. So she was 6 months pregnant when the referral came through. And given her involvement, or she was a child in care herself and had just transitioned from care when she turned 18, she was quite reluctant initially to engage with our service. And that's where this is a good example of where it's really important to work with the support services. So the support service was able to ensure that they were at every meeting. If we were going to call the client, they would be involved in that phone call. If we were to email the client, they would be involved in that email, so that we could build rapport with the client and trust in our service. Over that 3-month period, we were able to identify any gaps in the supports that the client was already engaged in and give some advice about her engagement with supports to ensure that she's engaging as best as she can to address any child protection concerns. Given that we had that 3 months to work with the client was able to work with child safety before the baby was born. She did really well. She engaged with her services, followed legal advice. We were able to continue negotiations up until shortly before the birth of the baby, we were able to negotiate discharge planning from hospital. So initially, when we were involved 3 months earlier, Child Safety had told us that they had an intention to apply to remove the baby at birth. And then 3 months later, after working with the client and Child Safety Support Services, we were then looking at a discharge planning where baby will be discharged home with mum. And one of the client's biggest concerns was for child safety coming to the hospital. So she absolutely did not want the child safety officers to come to the hospital, given that they've said that they're not removing the baby. So we were able to talk about that and put that into an agreement and into some discharge planning so that the client knew what to expect at the hospital and she wasn't feeling traumatized about going into the hospital knowing that child safety would be there. So that was really important to her. We were also able to negotiate an intervention with parental agreement, so that was for 6 months, and an ongoing safety and support plan. So it was a very good outcome for mum and a baby in that circumstance.
Yeah. And that's super important because particularly young people who've been in care are very much in a position where they lack power.
Yes.
And they're used to having every aspect of their lives scrutinised.
Yes.
Everything's under the microscope. And so things that other young people who are pregnant, it can be okay. If it's a young person who's been in care and they're pregnant, then all of a sudden it's not okay.
Yes.
And so to be able to give this mum the ability to have some control and have some power over things that really impact her and impact her baby.
Yes. I might also note with this one as well, at the end of our service, we were able to give further advice in relation to domestic and family violence. The police had applied for an order, so we didn't need to make any of those applications. However, we gave the advice about where to go from here and how the client can be safe. And we were also able to give some advice in relation to child support because that was a big issue for the client and she had received information from Centrelink about her payments. So we were able to give that advice as well to the client. So
excellent. Great. So if we go to the next case example, we have yet another young person who was previously a child in care, and lots of factors in this one that would lead to a high likelihood of removal. So we have a First Nations client, and we know that they are significantly overrepresented in the child protection system. First Nations, previously in out-of-home care, so also another likelihood of being overrepresented. We have a significant intellectual impairment. So then there's the query about their capacity. And then we add in domestic and family violence and mental health. That's a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
So how did the ELS team sort of tease all that out to support this mum?
So this referral came through the client. So there's the Office of the Public Guardian. They were appointed to make legal decisions for this client. The ELS was able to work with the Office of the Public Guardian, or OPG, and the client to provide advice and assistance together. We want to make sure that the client can still participate in our service and is involved in that decision making, even though OPG make those legal decisions. This client was also involved in NDIS and had a number of supports, a number of people coming into our home services. So we received authority from client or OPG in this matter to talk to her NDIS supports as well and have what we would call like a stakeholders meeting. So all the support services coming together, the client coming together, her legal representatives through the ELS and child safety to work out who's providing what supports to the client, and then are there actually any gaps in those supports? If there are other services who might be able to provide that assistance. We were able to identify there was one other service, so a referral was made, and we were able to advocate at numerous meetings with child safety for those appropriate services to be involved and for baby to remain at home with mum. There was particular focus on the visibility of the child because there were so many services every day coming into mum's home. There was a lot of visibility on this baby. And that effectively reduced risk within the home as well. So the outcome was that the baby was not removed and an intervention with parental agreement was made. There was also ongoing safety and support planning and case planning. And I will note for this particular one, remember there was a significant intellectual impairment of the client. So when you have an intervention with parental agreement, or in this circumstance, ongoing safety and support planning and case planning, it's very difficult for the client to understand what that document says. And then when we're not in the picture, to remember what that document says. So for this particular matter, we were able to use images throughout those agreements and plans, and those images somewhat explained what that plan was. And then when talking with the client, they were able to reiterate to us what their understanding of this plan was using those images. So that was very effective. And we actually, the OPG provided very positive feedback to our early legal service, which was great to see that we are able to meet those needs of the client, build rapport for the client. And I will also note that our lawyers are trauma informed. They have completed trauma informed training, and they continue to complete training with cultural safety and disability informed as well. So that's very important in our service, given the significant vulnerable people and clients that we are working with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the last case example for ELS, which once again, yet another complex case, but this one was because the family were culturally and linguistically diverse.
Yes.
And the main child protection focus here was domestic and family violence. So once again, tell us how ELS helped this particular client.
Yeah, so firstly, I'll note that we do have interpreters. So we do have the ability to use interpreters to communicate with our clients. In this circumstance, we didn't need the interpreter, but I think it's worth noting that those options are available and were available to the client at the time as well. In this matter, the ELS was able to provide early legal advice and assistance in relation to child protection and in relation to domestic violence. The primary child protection concern was domestic violence, and we have grants of aid to apply for a domestic violence order. The ELS lawyer assisted the client to complete her grant of aid, which was then approved, and the lawyer was able to assist the client in her preparation of an application, filing the application for a domestic violence order, and that ongoing representation in the domestic violence space. An order was made in the domestic violence courts, and referrals were made by the ELS lawyer to other domestic violence support services for ongoing education, so that the client could receive some education insight in relation to the domestic violence behaviours and the cycle of domestic violence, and also for counselling for the own trauma that she has from the perpetration of domestic violence as well. And all of those measures, so receiving the order, so obtaining the order, the referrals, and the ongoing engagement with those services meant that the child protection concerns were resolved, and child safety closed their investigation, which was great for the clients.
So yet again, another family where they're traditionally disempowered in the system, and maybe with not a great understanding of what the various legal systems are and the implications, could easily think that if they just say yes or just ignore things will go away, and then they get into a much worse situation. So having that legal advice there earlier and helping them negotiate through all the various systems led to a great outcome.
Yeah, that is important, because I think it's important to know that child safety is not just going to go away. If they have concerns, they're going to look at what, as we spoke about the phases at the beginning of the slide, what phase are we looking at, what are the concerns, and how are child safety going to respond to those concerns. So they're not just going to go away if someone ignores them, unfortunately, which is why it's just so important to receive that early legal advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does someone contact ELS?
So we've got the next slide. So this is our contacts for our child protection early legal service. If you want some more information about our ELS or partnering, you can give us a call. There's our phone number there, and also our email address. So we have a dedicated law clerk who manages the child protection early legal service inbox. And the law clerk will filter all of that information and respond. We can provide more information if services would like to know more about our ELS or potential partnerships.
Brilliant. And like we said at the beginning, when people don't know, they might bring child safety. Once again, if people are not sure whether they're eligible for ELS or the partner agency isn't sure, it's just about calling, isn't it? And just asking the question.
Absolutely. Call or send an email.
Yeah. So apart from ELS, what else do the child protection team do?
So we have our, I think we've
There's another slide.
we've just gone to, there we go. So we have a duty lawyer service as well. Yep. So a duty lawyer service is where we have a lawyer at court on the day that child protection matters are being heard. On the screen on our slide, we have the courts listed for our duty lawyer services, where the duty lawyers will be at court. And on the next slide,
I think it's the last.
No,
Yeah, it's out of order.
Okay. So this slide is our outreach service. So our we also have an outreach duty lawyer service, an outreach child protection service, and part of the outreach service is also a duty lawyer service. So I'll talk about both of them in a duty lawyer perspective together. So the outreach service provides duty lawyer services at regional children's courts. So those regional children's courts are also listed on the screen. And if we go to the next slide, that is, this is about our duty lawyer service. So at all of those courts on those two slides that we've spoken about, our duty lawyer and our outreach services, this is the duty lawyer service that we provide at those courts. It's a free service. We provide legal advice and assistance to clients in court on that day. So it can't be the day before court or the week before court or the day after court. This is about child protection matters in court on that day. The duty lawyer will discuss the legal situation with the client and any options that might be available. They'll give free legal information and advice and explain what can happen in court and the court process as well. So not just today, but what to expect on the next few steps of the court process. The duty lawyer can also help with negotiations. And negotiations could be with other parties or could be with the applicants. So the applicants in child protection matters are usually either OCFOS, so that's the Office of the Child and Family Official Solicitor. OCFOS are the lawyers with child safety, and they usually make applications for either an assessment order, so that could be a 3-day order for an assessment or a 28-day order, or it could be for a temporary custody order, which is a 1-day order. And we can have those negotiations with OCFOS about the application that they've brought before the court, any custody component, any contact components. We can provide assistance with any adjournments, legal aid applications, and any referrals. So if there's any referrals that we need to make. Also for negotiations, if it's a child protection matter where DCPL, so that's the Director of Child Protection and Litigation, if they've applied to the court for a child protection order, the duty lawyer can have some negotiations with DCPL as well. In the same form, it could be about the court process, any directions that are being made, or the next steps, what's happening for the matter, what's outstanding, and can provide assistance in seeking an adjournment, completing a legal aid application, and any referrals that might need to be made.
So throughout the webinar so far, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of negotiation and advocacy that goes on, but a lot of collaboration and working with other agencies. So you've talked about negotiating with child safety and supporting parents with child safety. You've talked about OCFOS, you've talked about DCPL, you've talked about Office of the Public Guardian, you've talked about community agencies. There's a lot of stakeholders and as well as the family that the lawyers are actually engaged with.
There are a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people involved in these matters, or that can be involved in these matters. Yes, absolutely. As a duty lawyer service, I'll also note that we can provide services to respondent parents, to participants. So a participant could be what's called a Section 113 participant, and they are important people in their children's lives where the court has granted permission for them to participate in court proceedings. So if the court's granted permission or if they've made that application to participate, the duty lawyers can also provide assistance as well. And we can also provide assistance to children and young people who come to court if they do present at court on the day as well.
child protection certainly is a complex matter, isn't it?
Yes, it
But as we sort of mentioned early on too, it's everybody's business.
It is,
And
absolutely.
nobody works in isolation from anybody else. Right. So we have a case example.
Yes, we do.
For Judy Lawyer. So talk us through this one.
So this was one of our Judy Lawyer matters, and the client was the mother and the child was 9 days old. So a newborn baby. And what happened in this matter was OPFOS, so they're the Lawyers for Child Safety. They applied for a 28-day order. So that's called a court assessment order for an investigation and assessment to take place by Child Safety and for Child Safety to have custody of the baby during that time. The client provided instructions that she agreed for the investigation and assessment, so she agreed for the assessment order to be made, and she agreed for custody to be ordered because the client instructed that at that point in time she didn't have the ability to care for her baby over that 28-day period. However, she said that she was only having contact with her newborn baby twice a week for 1 hour. And she was very concerned about creating that bond with the baby creating bond with her, and also breastfeeding because she was still breastfeeding the baby. We were able to have some negotiations with OPFOS, Lawyers for Child Safety, to negotiate for more contacts so that mum can continue breastfeeding, mum and baby can continue creating their bond over the next 28 days. It's a really important time in baby's life. And we came to an agreement on that. We came to an agreement for daily contact between mum and baby, which was fantastic. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so then we have a free legal advice that you guys do as well.
Yes, we also in the child
In your
protection,
free time.
yes, in the child protection team, we also have a legal advice clinic. This is run 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the afternoons from 1 till 3. It is a phone clinic. However, if the client is highly vulnerable, so for example, intellectual impairment, OPG involved, where phone advice is simply not going to be appropriate for this client, then we might look at a face-to-face appointment for this client. So we also have, remember, that outreach service as well. So if these clients are based in the catchment areas of those outreach courts from the previous slide, and we've got highly vulnerable clients, the duty lawyer at court on that day, as an outreach lawyer, could provide that legal advice to the clients who can come to court, yes, and face to face, given the vulnerability, given the regions, but otherwise they can still, if they are able to receive phone advice, they will absolutely be put into our legal advice clinic. Again, for our legal advice, we provide advice to parents, non-parties, so important people in their children's lives, and young people or children as well. So there's some more information. There's another webinar that discuss the different types of roles, so whether it's a respondent parent or a non-party or a direct representative, so that's directly giving advice to a child or a young person, or there are also separate representatives that are the best interests of children. There's been another, there has been a webinar on those topics, and at the end of this webinar we'll explain where people can view those extra webinars that took place last week.
So that's the one, the Who's Who in Child Protection.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
On the 1st of September.
That's right, Who's Who in Child Protection. Yes.
So you've mentioned a couple of times so far about grants of aid.
Yes.
Which is a very complex system.
So grants of aid, our lawyers in the child protection team, we also run files as well as our services, and our files are based on grants of aid. Grants of aid are available at each stage of a child protection matter, and it's really important to know that grants of aid for child protection are not merit tested. There's 2 exceptions, which I'll explain shortly, but they're not merit tested. So what merit tested means is chances of success. So does the person have a chance of success in their application or in their response? We're not looking at that in child protection. The stages where we would look at merit would be for an interim hearing or a final hearing. Sometimes final hearings are known as a trial. So they're the 2 circumstances where we do look at merit, but all of your initial assistance and your court processes, we're not looking at that merit. it is still subject to our financial criteria, so our means test, but not that merit. There are grants of aid again for respondent parents, for as I mentioned previously, important people who are involved in children's lives, who might participate in the proceeding. They are called Section 113 applicants. If the court provides permission, so leave, for that person to participate in the proceedings, then they could be eligible to apply for grant of aid. There was also a grants webinar on this topic as well. So there's some more information through the webinar, and there is a link to that webinar on the screen, which will be provided from the CLE team, so that you can get some more information on grants of aid as well.
Yeah. And that one was the 25th of July, that particular webinar. It was very entertaining and well worth watching.
Yeah.
Thank you. Excuse me.
So in summary, really, that's a lot of information that people have been given. What's the basics that they need to know, which is how they contact us and what they need to give you when they contact you?
Yes, so this is how services or parents can contact the child protection team. It's our phone number and our email address. If you're not sure what service that Legal Aid can provide under child protection, or whether it's a child protection matter or not, an email. As we were saying, these contact details on the screen, that is how a referral can be made. It could be directly from a person needing legal advice in relation to child protection, or it could be from a support service or another agency who are assisting the clients with engaging in services or with legal aid. What we do find that assists us at Legal Aid, when we receive a referral, to have the full name and date of birth of the parents and all of the children involved in the matter. That allows us to perform a conflict, to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. Again, if there is a conflict, we do have that option to offer a conflict letter to the clients. That conflict letter will be posted to the client, which they can take to a preferred supplier law firm to receive legal advice. And also for the referrals, a brief description of what the child protection problem is that the client wants assistance with.
Hilariously, I have now lost control of the slides, and I don't want to push the escape button in case it kicks us out of the webinar. We are at the end, so I'm just going to grab my notes here.
I think the last slide was just general legal aid contact numbers.
Yes, so the last slides we have there are just our contact numbers for both our legal information and referrals, our Indigenous info line, and questions about an application you have already submitted. Those phone numbers will be available in the handouts. Sorry, I'm okay. We'll pop them up later. If anybody has any questions, that would be the last part of the webinar that we would like to cover. I will just hand back over to our presenters, if you can't see me anywhere. Did you guys have any top tips as well that you might want to cover?
I do. I have a top tip and a take-home message.
Fantastic.
My top tip would be the importance of early legal advice. So again, I can't reiterate enough the importance of receiving early legal advice, the earliest possible stage of any child protection involvement with a family. And my take-home tip is there are no wrong doors.
Yeah,
so send through the referral, contact the child protection team. If you're not sure what the client might be eligible for or what service is available for the client, if you send the referral in, the child protection team can see which service will best meet the needs of those clients. So no wrong door, please send through the referrals and we can take it from our end.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. No wrong door and no wrong question and no silly question.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to put, did you, we haven't actually had any questions come in from the audience today that might have something to do with the fact that the webinar technology failed us in the middle of the webinar. I think we had a question prepared in advance. If you mind going through that one.
So I have a question for you, Tamika, which is that when you talk about child protection, it's such a powerful system where there's the ability to remove a child from a parent's custody. So really in child protection proceedings and involvement, do parents and children have any rights?
Do they have rights?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Parents and children do have rights. The children in out-of-home care, there is a Charter of Rights for children in out-of-home care. It is a Schedule 1 in the Child Protection Act that sets out the rights of those children. There is also a Charter of Rights for Parents, which was prepared or drafted by FIN, the Family Inclusion Network. That can be located on the Child Safety website. And the principles of the Child Protection Act also set out rights of families and rights of children, or the principles that the court needs to consider when making an order. And some of those principles consider the parents and also the child and the best interests of the child as well. Also, we have the Queensland Human Rights Act, provides rights for parents and for children, and also the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, so CROC, that was ratified in Australia, and that ensures that all children in Australia have rights to enjoy, and it is set out in that treaty as well. So there are a number of rights that children and parents have. I won't go into individually what all those rights are, because that's probably another webinar, but that's where those resources can be found.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, there's no other questions.
We don't have any other questions that have come through from the audience. Thank you so much, Rachel and Tamika, for your assistance today. This was a fantastic webinar, so informative. I just wanted to touch base on a few little CLE things. I was going to hold this paper printout I have up to the screen, but I'm not going to do that. The handouts will be available after the webinar. They will come out to everybody who has registered, so please don't feel like you've missed anything. If you did want to find out any more about our publications or see any of our past webinars, all of that information is available on our website. So that's www.legalaid.qld.gov.au. And find legal information. That'll take you through to the CLE team, and we're happy to field any questions that you might have. If you are looking for a webinar or a particular publication, or would like to get put in touch with these wonderful people behind me. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. I really apologise for the technical difficulties, but we'll see you again for our next webinar. Thank you.